Let's go pull that case off, or that cover off the plate. All right, so I went ahead and pressed these in. Getting these out was super easy compared to pushing or pulling the shafts or the gears of the bearing off of those the independent shafts. But they came right out of this pretty easily. Just had to pull this plate off, push these out this way. You can see that this one, it has the faces, the outside races completely visible. On this side it sits up against this. Same with this one here. This one's quote unquote completely visible, but it's not. There's like a large snap ring that sits on this one. There's another lip on the inside of this that this sits up against. They both push in the same, they both push in and out the same way. That other bearing, let's see, so this is the old one, the small one, and this is the larger one. You can see how gross it is, but this is that, there's that snap ring that the thing sits up against. So before it gets reassembled, it's probably best to, I don't know, I'll probably actually wait and clean it up after the fact, since I'll be touching it and sitting on things as I'm pushing these shafts back into this assembly here. But should be ready to go. So what I'm gonna do now is, well, I guess let me get this set up and start taking first gear in this synchro assembly off. This one, I don't want to. Let's sit up against that. Okay, since you see the kind of space I'm working with here, I went ahead and put on this bearing. The rest of this stuff is fantastic, so this is ready to go back on if it'll sit still. This one's ready to go back on. Obviously I just need to put that collar back on there, but in order to get the collar on this one, obviously these have to be somewhat mated together. And since I'm going to put them both, this and this, back in this housing at the same time, the similar way as I pulled them out, right? Like I pushed this one down like a little bit and then push this one down a little bit, because let's see. So if this was in that transmission, it would look something like this, right? So obviously this part is gonna have to fit in there, and since we're like, this is the amount of movement, so as I was pressing it out, I was able to do, you know, that much at a time, one then the other, one then the other, one then the other. So I'm gonna have to get it back in there the same way, and then I basically just get them started, and once it gets to a certain point, I'll be able to slip this the end of this input shaft back on this output shaft. So ideally, I believe what the best course of action is to go ahead and prep this piece with the collar and like the little keepers and that snap ring on the inside to hold the keepers in place. So the one thing that's probably not so great is I have forgotten which way this collar goes on. I believe that if it's like first gear, you can see that this collar for first and second has like this aggressive pattern on the outside. I say it's an aggressive pattern, but it has like the really harsh like angles here on the edge so that it's easier to catch the synchro and get into the gear. Whereas this one, like something like I obviously don't want to just wing it and put it on there. So I'm going to look and just kind of try to confirm real quick with maybe my other videos and stuff of what I've filmed so far. Maybe pictures, I can't really tell by the wear. So let me do that, and then I will show you guys the process of putting these keepers back in and that snap ring, leaving this on the back side of this, and then trying to sneak that past it once we get to that point. All right, I guess I'm dumb. I was wrong. These aggressive teeth apparently go the other way based on the video from when I took it apart. So we're gonna put that on. Basically there's 3 sections here where those keepers sit, and then we have to snap ring those things in place and somehow massage that collar down. Well, I suck. And I let the GoPro battery die again. But the stupid thing can't record more than like 5 minutes without dying. I either need new batteries or something. But so I tried to put the shafts in this, heated this bearing up a lot, fell around the shaft, perfect, but it immediately got cold enough to where I couldn't get it back out. So to press it back out, because this has to go in at the same time, I thought that just getting it started was like a good move, but it seems what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to put, and I went ahead and put the input shaft back down on this. I'm going to have to put this counter shaft where this is supposed to go and get them started in this at the same time. I can't think of another way to do it, and I don't think that there is another way to do it. I don't really have to get them started, but I have to get them started where with their position in these gears before they go in those holes. Otherwise, there's nowhere for it to start. The only reason that we could do this before with pulling it out was because of the stuff that was pressed onto the back. It was kind of holding it on there with tension. So I'm going to try to come up with a way that I can fit those together and hold them there. I think the right idea is to put this one in the press on this bearing, the inside brace of this bearing, just to sit it there. And then put this on top of it. But I'm also going to put this down there with probably the jack pushing up so that they get to like the same spot. And then I can put this bad boy on top of them. And then I'll probably take like some circle guys, put them on this and just tap them on just to get them started enough, because it doesn't take much. Like for this one, like the counter shaft just, I mean, you don't have to heat it up, no, it just falls in there, right? And then it also spins on this bearing, and then it gets pushed on the back with, so this one going in there, not a big deal, that one is. So yeah, I think that's going to be the plan. I'll try to keep this thing charged, or at least find my other batteries or something, and then video the process tomorrow, I hope. It's gotten dark out. But alright, sweet. Alright, so I've slowly started to realize that this has just been a complete pain to film, especially with this GoPro, just because it just keeps dying so often. But specifically at this part where I'm putting, where I put both of the shafts back in this housing, and I went ahead and pressed both of these back on the back too. The biggest thing is you need like 4 sets of hands, it feels like, to do this the way that I did it. I'm sure there's a better way to do it, or the right way to do it. But the way I did it, I needed so many hands to line everything up and get everything in there evenly. So basically what it is, I took these 2 shafts, I made that the jig down there. I call it a jig, but it's just like a setup to where they're both very even. Kept them in place, started them both with the housing, kind of went down on them. The biggest thing is the counter shaft goes in very easily. You don't really have to like heat anything up. It just kind of sits on those like roller bearings. This one needs it. It's kind of has to be pressed in. But I heated it up, just the bearing by itself in the housing, really good before I started, and I was able to get it like halfway on both shafts without having to do much pressing or anything. After that, I was able to basically take this out, flip it over to where this, the housing of this was sitting on that, and there's like a different configuration for each little thing you have to do. But I pressed back down on the input shaft, and it pushed it back in the housing the rest of the way, which in turn pushed the counter shaft in the rest of the way. Once I got that, flipped it back over, well, really took this out, set my, not this one, I grabbed the smaller ones, but I set these, the little pullers, on the back of this and the back of this, and push each one of the shafts in respect to which one I like had the plates against, and finishes those off. So basically these are locked on now, thankfully, and the next thing I'm going to do is I need to kind of work this way, it seems. I'll get something done and I'll tell you what's going on. So what I've done is, this was fine. I went ahead and put this on, but after, so when you guys saw it was just this gear, and then the this, like the retainer for this gear, it's like a metal fitting like this one. So what I did is I slipped this over that retainer sleeve. I forgot that this needed to go on, so I tried to back this off. This was already on at that point, so I couldn't back it off all the way. Between where this is and this space, it's enough to back off and then slip this in behind it and push it back in. So the real step process would have been this gear and the little retaining sleeve for this. Those would be fine. And then what I needed to do was I needed to put this shaft in already around this. So this and this would have been the same time onto there, then this, and then this little metal coupler. Okay, so found out that this one, this bottom gear on the counter shaft, is going first. So actually I found out too that the this one is fine. This one is smaller and shorter than the one that went on there. The one that went on there was fine. I didn't want it to fit differently, me get it back together and nothing worked the way it's supposed to, so I didn't replace these. This one's actually a little bit different too. I don't know if these are meant to go together and one of them is off. I don't want to use either one of them. So, whatever. Put it back together, collar on. This needs to go first, and these can honestly go in either sequence. I personally put this one on first, and then this one behind it. So, everything's on there as it should now, and we move on to the next part. Okay, so come to find out after I pushed this on, this thing that the collar, the gear the car sits on, I tried to put the spacer back in, and I could not put that in because I hadn't actually pressed this and this on well enough. Hey, so I got this back on. Basically what I did wrong was this shaft wasn't pushed in all the way. So once I put this gear on for the collar, this little spacer in here didn't have room to fit all the way on to where I could put all the different clips to lock this in place. So basically what I did was I pulled the stuff back off, put the bearing puller on the inside of this, set it down, pressed it back in, so this was pushing up against it while the whatever the press was pressing down. Got it to go in the rest of the way. Then I stuck the idler gear on. No worries. Put this gear on for 5th gear. Bearing, whatever. Everything else on, snap rings, yada yada yada, all finished. So that was a quick and painless, but this one's done now. I've found out that this, from where 1st gear messed up, it actually did more damage than I thought. So I got a new one. Yeah, look at how big that lip is where it ate into it when 1st gear went bad. But I got a new one from a Z32. So hopefully this one will work when we get it back together, but I'll have it all finish. I gotta get the bearings out of these cases and then I can be done with it. I need to clean the surfaces, all of these. Slip that. Oh, actually, I need to do these. I gotta do this bearing and one in this case. Yep, I gotta do this middle bearing and I have to do this one. Both are for the counter shaft. Actually, this one is for the output shaft and this one's for the counter shaft. But I guess let me shoot. I'll go ahead and get it set up to get these bearings out. And I'm gonna pull off snap ring, this washer. Double check everything, make sure it's good to go. And then get these case halves put back together. Sweet. So I went ahead and pressed this bearing out. It was kind of sketchy because I wasn't sure if it needed to come out a certain way, but well, I guess I'll go ahead and tell you guys. I pushed it from the back side of this. This is like the shallow side. I pushed it here. So one of the reasons I did that is because it was flat on this side, and typically when something is very flat, I'm under the impression that there's something there stopping it from going any further. So I was like, well, if it was pushing the other side, I can push from this side. And I just heated the case up, tried to leave heat off of the bearing, and take it really, really slow. Make sure I didn't crack this. So that's how I did it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of work these one at a time. Since I've already got the bearing out of this one, I don't want to start spraying in any like cleaning fluid if the bearing's back in. So I'm going to try to clean this with the bearing out of it. All right. So cleaned up those edges. I covered up the gears before I did it just so I didn't get in a bunch of crap, dust, and everything else on it. It's hard to tell from this side, but mating surface is clean. Mating surface is clean. I cleaned those as well, even though it looks really dirty on this GoPro. It's probably the wide angle lens. I cleaned the front up really good. The front was like a cesspool of, well, screw it. I'll just flip it over and show you guys. The front looked like I'm gonna have to clean it off a little bit more, but I'll alcohol it before I actually made anything to it. But because it was sitting on the front there, and the table's disgusting. But yeah, the inside of this looked like, I mean, the whole thing was just black sludge. So I cleaned it off a lot. You know, this isn't as important simply because the clutch is just spinning around in there. It's not like fluids or anything. And junk from the engine's gonna go in there anyway, so, from the engine bay. I cleaned off the sensor holes quite a bit. Went ahead, after I cleaned this one off, I went ahead and did I pushed that new bearing in there. These mating surfaces look really good. I'll be ready to mate up nice. Oops. Try to get that one show a little bit better. Yep. It's actually a low point there, but it's good. It's clean. We'll be able to, should mate up really nice.